Welcome to the PIO Podcast, a place for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local government. An open forum to learn, grow, and develop your public information skills. Your host, Robert Tornabene, is a public information officer with over 10 years in the field and 27 years of law enforcement background. In each episode, we will explore different aspects of the public information officer profession. Weekly, we will delve into the field of public information by talking to other PIOs. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
Good morning. Today on the PIO podcast, we have Connor Hagan. He's the public affairs officer with the FBI Little Rock office. Connor, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on here, Robert. I really appreciate it.
Connor, as the public affairs officer for the FBI, how long have you been with them?
So I've been with the FBI for about 6 years now. I've been a public affairs officer for just under 3, and it's been a really good time. I love the job. There's a lot of different assets in the bureau, or facets in the bureau that we can get into, but it's a wonderful job, and it's a new thing every day.
So was your background in journalism, or?
Not at all. I actually was a history major at Ole Miss, and I went to grad school at Ole Miss, also in history. I did my master's thesis on the Cosa Nostra, which is the mafia, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know them well.
Oh, yeah, good guys, good fellows, some would say. But one of the kickers is I came in with the FBI on their SSG team. That's a special surveillance group. A lot of people don't realize that the FBI has a dedicated team of non-agents. They don't carry guns or anything, who are dedicated to following suspected spies, suspected terrorists, and conducting pretty sophisticated surveillance of subjects for FBI investigations. It was a really fun job, but eventually, you're working bad guy hours, and sometimes those hours change on a dime. So it's a little tough when they put you in a new city to make new friends. And I eventually transferred out of the SSG team and worked in the office with the Counterterrorism, Counterintelligence, and Human Intelligence folks, and learned a lot about the FBI for about 2 years there. And that was also where I really got my on-the-job training with the public affairs office up in Milwaukee. It was a great time.
Oh, fun, cool. Milwaukee, that's the only other office that you worked out of besides Little Rock?
No, sir. No, if I can, I'll give a little background.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So I'm from St. Louis originally. I'm part of a large Irish Catholic family, and everyone in my family is usually a doctor or a lawyer. So when I told them I wanted to be a glorified cop and work for the FBI, their eyes kind of went wide and said, what are you thinking? But I went to Ole Miss, like I said, for history, undergrad and grad school there. And then I joined the FBI again in Milwaukee on the SSG team. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of good people on that team. But I moved out of SSG after about a year and became an OST. That's an operational support technician. Those are kind of the entry-level positions with the FBI where you're doing a lot of the admin stuff, helping out with paperwork and, doing some minor investigative stuff. But you're really seeing the FBI as a whole. In that role, my counterpart now in Milwaukee, his name's Leonard Peace. He's the public affairs officer, or PAO, up there. And just for people listening, the FBI, we love to say, well, people go by PIO. We're going to change that up a little bit. So we go by PAOs. It's one letter difference, and not a huge difference in the actual roles and responsibilities. But Leonard let me follow him around up there as the OST. We did a lot of good work. I got to see a lot. In fact, we had a series that I was kind of responsible for alongside Leonard called Unsolved Violent Crimes. We put out every couple of 2 weeks or so, we put out a bank robbery or a store robbery where we had some good video footage. And a lot of times these were violent robberies, guys coming in and shooting, guns in the ceiling and, pretty violent stuff. And out of the 11 or 12 that we featured, we captured 7 of those guys based on just, putting that information out there alongside a reward. So it was really, from my perspective, I'd never thought of public affairs. And suddenly I'm being, my hands being shaken by a bunch of the guys on the bank robbery squad saying, thanks for helping us clear up some of these cases. And I realized, wow, this makes a difference.
I remember a program that I believe the FBI still has it. It was all bank robbers like in the Chicagoland area when I worked in one of the suburbs there. That you can go in and look at every image of every bank robbery that occurred. That was I can't remember the name of the it had an or not an acronym. It had a website address, and it was just really easy to go ahead and share that information and look at it, see if you knew somebody. We ended up clearing a couple cases that the FBI didn't want later on, but they were there because it occurred, and
Sure.
but it was very helpful, and I can see where being a PAO is important. And Ross Rice was, I don't know if you know who Ross is. He was the PAO in the Chicago office for years, and Ross used to do a PIO training class, like a 2.5 day course at the FBI's office in Chicago, and that's where I got my first class from. That was where I got that first taste of it. God, like 12 or 13 years ago. So great experience. He has since retired and now lives out in the suburbs out here, but very good. So
It's definitely a good time, yeah.
it is. So how many people work out of your office in the public affairs office?
Yeah, so in Little Rock, I'm the only official public affairs officer, but I do work kind of like Leonard took me under his wing. I have a backup public affairs officer, Jessica Franklin is her name, and she is wonderful. She's an OST like I was, but we work together on a lot of stuff. She handles a lot of same duties that I do. I'm trying to get her as much experience as I can. One piece I do want to say is I didn't come directly from Milwaukee to Little Rock. I actually spent 2 years in Houston as a public affairs officer there. Okay. And those 2 years were pretty wild. 6 days in, we had a FBI hostage situation, and we had Santa Fe High School shooting. We had a 747 airplane crash. We had the Austin package bomber. We had a Beaumont serial bomber. I joke with my PAO counterpart down there when she says, ever since you got here, things have blown up. And I said, I don't think that's on me. I think that this is just, happening. But it was, at the same time that it was a lot of crazy critical incidents, it was also a wonderful learning time. I can't tell you, when you're going back to back to back on the critical incidents and working with these partners day in and day out, you learn the job. And I think that was the best thing. I came up here about a year and a half ago to Little Rock, and Jessica, the other member of my team, has been with me for probably the past 4 months or so, actually really backing me up. So
very good. It's amazing how much you can learn when you have trial by fire, isn't it? And sometimes that's the best way to do it, because when you're under that continued stress, your level of attention to things, it rises to the occasion sometimes. And we would hope in our field, I think that's what most PAOs or PIOs do, is they rise to those occasions when the crisis occurs. And that's when they truly shine, because we want to be in this field. We want to be those people that connect and communicate and interact with our different partners that are out there. So kudos to you. Kudos to you for going through that.
Thanks.
You have made a really big effort in Little Rock to increase the use of social media to connect to the community. What platforms are you using right now?
Yes, we've made a pretty substantial push. The one kind of hindrance is FBI headquarters limits the field to only one Twitter account. So we only have Twitter. We don't have Facebook. We don't have Instagram. We do a lot on Twitter. We have tried to leverage live content. So when we had a scammer call the FBI, it wasn't the brightest bulb in the shed, but we were able to kind of, record that scam and see, how does this play out? Let's spend 20 minutes just, seeing how the scam works. Obviously, we advise people don't spend 20 minutes on the phone with the scammer, but he called my desk and, okay, hey, let's see where this went. But it also, I find that social media, even if it's 280 characters, if you do the right stuff on it, you can also humanize people behind the badge.
Absolutely.
And that's a key for us. everyone thinks of the 1980s movies. I always think of Die Hard, right? Agent Johnson, no relation. Two FBI guys, and we're in charge now, and that's not how the FBI wants to be seen. We many times are Little League soccer coaches. We are Boy Scout leaders. We have guys in this office who take veterans out fly fishing to help with some of the PTSD. We're members of this community. We've got deacons, we've got former school teachers, and people kind of forget that when they see the movies. When they see the raid jackets and the sunglasses and the suits. And I think that social media is a really good outlet to be able to tell people, yes, we've got a job to do, and we're very good at that job. And when the FBI shows up and we are working, and if we're trying to be the big bad FBI, we can do it. But many times people that's all that they see us as. And what we want to show people is that that's not always us. We are members of the community who go to your schools, your churches, your grocery stores. We have the same questions and issues as you do. And we're just trying to work to keep everyone safe in our community.
So have you done some storytelling, pitching stories through your social media accounts, or whether it's through the local media, to talk about what the office does in Little Rock, or highlight some agents that are public-facing agents, maybe that you don't have to worry about their identity being compromised?
So we have very few public-facing agents, as you would say. But we do try to highlight them, yes. I think the bigger thing that we pitch stories on is the same concerns that the community might have about potential criminal threats. We're hearing about, right? I'm hearing about that at the church group that I go to, or the local bar that I stop at after work, of where people are saying, hey, I got this weird scam call, or hey, I've got a friend who I think is being scammed with with a romance scheme. And we can take that information and then apply it to local media outlets. We have really good partnerships here with all of the stations and all of the newspapers in Arkansas. Many times we will do kind of a dual push. We'll do several interviews with local TV stations and newspapers about, the hot topic right now is ransomware, right? We're seeing these attack after attack after attack. Well, when I bring in a cybersecurity expert on TV on 3 different stations, and then do an interview for the Sunday newspaper about ransomware, and then back that up with as we did yesterday, a social media push on what is ransomware, how does this work, what should you do, we hope that we can expand the knowledge of what this threat is and how people can counter it. And we do it with a variety of threats. We do it with violent crimes against children. We do it with cyber threats. We do it even with, counterterrorism threats. If you're seeing indicators of mobilization to violence, where what we call a homegrown violent extremist may be getting amped up to commit an attack, there are indicators that our behavioral analysis unit has put out that a lot of people don't know about. And so when we try to push that, we do push it across the board, both social media and traditional media.
And I'm sure a great majority of the public doesn't think of the homegrown. When you say the word terror, they don't think of the homegrown terrorists. And I think a lot of people have started to pay attention since the insurrection happened on January 6th. So you do see some change in the mentality, and we have seen some increased reporting too in regards to that, just simply because now there's an awareness. And that's, I think, as PAOs or PIOs, that's what we have to do, is just keep raising the level of awareness for the public. That ransomware thing is it's ridiculous. And it's so easy for a company to be taken over just by a simple click on an email and a link.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. The sophistication of these ransomware attacks is, I think, something that is evolving, that we're starting to see. You have criminal groups that are starting to use what we would typically see with what nation states would use, and they're able to exploit that purely for profit. And that is a very scary transition. When you talked about the January 6th Capitol siege, so I serve as part of the FBI's media flight team, and I'm really honored to be on it. we have a team of about 9 PAOs across the nation who come from other FBI field offices. There's I think 9 or 10 of us. And each month you're assigned a month to basically, have coverage of any critical event that goes on. So back in August 2020, when Jacob Blake, the shooting occurred up in Kentucky, that was my on-call month. So I went up there to assist. And then in January of 2021, I get a call 2 days after the Capitol siege saying, "Hey, can you come out to the Washington Field Office and assist with media out there?" So I was there for over 2 weeks through the inauguration. And you're talking about kind of learning in the heat of the moment. I think that the media fly team is one of the best experiences I've ever had, because you are literally traveling to sites where there are critical incidents that have either just taken place or still kind of going on. And you're able to assist the on-scene PAO with whatever they need. And I think it's a wonderful learning experience. But yeah, I'm kind of curious if there's ever going to be the level of ransomware attack where it's like, hey, you're deploying to a ransomware, attack site. I'm not sure, it doesn't do the physical damage in the sense of, it's not a bomb going off, but it certainly impacts people when you start seeing it in your gas stations or at your burger joints or on your small business computer. That ransomware has, within I think the past year, gone way up in people's view of, okay, this can impact my life a lot more than I previously thought.
I agree, and it's really cool to hear that the FBI's got a team, basically a PAO strike team that goes out to assist. Listen, this is something that in the region, in the Chicagoland region, they have. There's in DuPage County, there's a group that's got the Public Information Assistance Team, and then they go out, they assist each other when they need to, whether they have to have a JIC or whether it's just you need a backup. And years ago, we created like an informal group where members that were PIOs agreed if somebody called, you would go and deploy and help them, whether you were remotely and you logged in and you answered Twitter comments, or you just help them craft messaging so that they can get it out. And that's great to see that you guys have something like that, but it's very organized, which is phenomenal. Makes life much easier.
For sure. And our headquarters, I really give a lot of props to our Office of Public Affairs, which is like the FBI headquarters, kind of oversees all the public affairs officers in the field. There's a team up there that has really put together and gotten this team off the ground and gotten us not only the equipment and the organization, but the training too. And I think that's the key is some of this training, you talk about, those critical incidents where you're learning, and it's a high stress, you got to make it or break it. But a lot of the times when you're listening to PAOs who've been in those situations, who've been at a certain critical incident or have seen some stuff, you can learn from them. That's just key. And I always love hearing from other PAOs, which is why I enjoy this podcast so much. I've been listening on how they deal with certain things. How do they deal with critical incidents? How do they deal with comments on social media? What is their approach? Because, again, I'm 3 years into being a PAO. I'm still learning big time. And I'm trying to take the opportunities to learn and, see where it takes me in the future.
Outstanding. The lessons learned and training, you can never get enough of it. That's the one thing that any executive or supervisor has to realize. Training is key. So you are going to be conducting a presentation, and the title of it's called Leveraging Social Media to Connect with Communities During Social Distancing. And you're doing that for the social media conference coming up, if I'm not mistaken. Can you just give us some key points and key takeaways? You don't need to go into a whole lot of detail, but just a little bit.
Sure. So we actually, that presentation was given a year ago. So no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
My mistake. I thought that was coming up this week.
No, not. I think the takeaways on that, the key is, again, we try to humanize the FBI, and I think every agency can try to humanize their people. When you're talking on social media with social distancing, and we've gotten at least for the time being, kind of out of that big social distancing bump that we had. But when you're dealing with that, some of it is humor, right? I particularly find that there are police accounts that I follow and have seen that use humor to their advantage. Now, it's not unprofessional. It's always within bounds, and you have seen, of course, a time or two humor go out of bounds. But if you're using humor and you're using similar experiences, such as scam calls, right? So that was a big piece when we gave this presentation. When that scammer called me, it kind of clicked with me. Like, I get 4 or 5 scam calls a day that I just, okay, I hang up. But there are people who lose, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And that's why I'm getting 4 or 5 scam calls a day, because it is a criminal scheme that still pans out, that still, plays out. And maybe fleshing out what that scheme looks like and telling people, hey, these are the red flags, and using humor to educate them is a good idea. I think again, back to the humanizing, we have a lot of different people in the FBI who diverse. And I know that's a hot button word these days, but when I say diverse, certainly, religion, gender, sex, race, all of that, but more the background. We've got engineers, we've got, former military, former police, sure, but we've got former teachers. We've got former dental hygienists. We've got, a guy that I worked with who was over bank robberies in Houston was the sous chef for Bobby Flay. And that diversity, right? You don't think of that. Well, this guy's an FBI bank robbery investigator. Yeah, but he also knows how to cook a really good meal. And being able to share that is something I think draws the community in and allows them to trust us, which of course benefits us when we're able to collaborate, because we rely on the public a lot for those tips that, tips on not only catching fugitives and stuff, but hey, are there scammers reaching out to you, or did you see something suspicious, or what have you, where police aren't there 24/7. We have under 200 FBI people in the entire state of Arkansas. There's no way we can protect this state without the community's help coming to us and saying, hey, we're seeing this. Can you guys help us? And we do. I give this office a lot of credit. The FBI Little Rock office has tremendous contacts in the community, and we do respond in a big way when community members and community leaders come forward and say, can you help us with this, that, or the other?
Great. And I'm going to jump into this comment. This next question is, last year, your office partnered with the Arkansas Department of Education and the DEA to present Chasing the Dragon. And I'm assuming that this has to do with the opioid epidemic.
Yes, sir.
What was the objective and how was it received?
So Chasing the Dragon is a joint film between the FBI and DEA, and it highlights the harsh realities of opioid addiction. This is not, I grew up with McGruff and Dare, and McGruff I always thought was kind of a fun guy, taking a bite out of crime. This is not that. This is much harder hitting. You are seeing graphic images and hearing some pretty disturbing stories on how the opioid epidemic has impacted people throughout the nation. Arkansas, I believe it was last year, we had more OD deaths from opioid than meth. And that's saying something, because meth in Arkansas is, pretty well known. And the fact that opioid ODs have taken over that is astounding. For the reception of it, we showed it to many of the high schools. COVID, obviously, a lot of them were at home, but we were able to digitally share this video. And this video is, you can go to FBI.gov and just look up Chasing the Dragon. It's free for anyone to use and share. But I think it was received very well. I know that we've had some instances where what we'll do is we'll show this video typically in a classroom, and we'll have a school resource officer or an agent or a DEA employee or an FBI employee who's there in the classroom with the kids watching this film, and then afterwards, hey, let's get into some of this hard-hitting topics, and they can answer some of the questions about it. DEA and the FBI, it's a very serious matter, this opioid epidemic. I think it's, it's one of those where you have to take a multi-pronged approach, not only with education, but diversion, and looking at, all right, who's giving these pills out, who's prescribing these pills, are there groups that may be working to make money, as we've seen recently. The big pharmaceuticals lost in court. The DEA brought some pretty significant penalties to large pharmaceutical companies who based a lot of their profits off of exploiting the addiction of opioids. And
absolutely.
We're this year, actually, if I can just for a second, we're trying to narrow down on Arkansas specifically. So we've partnered with the Department of Ed here in Arkansas. We've partnered with Arkansas PBS, DEA, obviously, and FBI. They are producing a film that is not based on stories from all over the nation, where you might have Ohio and LA and Miami, but on Arkansas specific. So you have Little Rock and Fayetteville and Jonesboro and Marion stories that these kids, they may know those, people who are involved in these, addiction cases, and they're hard-hitting stories same way. Families who've lost loved ones, former addicts who go into, how far their addiction took them down a road that they did not want to go. And being able to kind of make that Arkansas-centric, I think, is a huge piece that's going to benefit the students this year.
Outstanding. I think that's a great way to more personalize it, because even when they see stories from across the country, they never necessarily, young people don't ever think that it's going to affect them.
Yep.
And if you can at least bring it home to the state and into the different communities, more personalize it, it has a much greater effect for them. Because I worked in schools in the past as an SRO and dealt with those kind of prevention programs, and it's very hard to sell to young people when they're hearing a story about something that happened in California and it does not impact them as like you would hope it would.
Sure.
Yep. So let's go into some more relaxed questions here. We'll go into a couple rapid fire here. Your favorite go-to libation?
I have to say post-workout Gatorade, post-work bourbon.
Excellent. What motivates you to get up in the morning?
I'm always excited to see what's going to happen at work. Every day is a little different. I know it sounds very Disney cliche, but it truly is. I've had days where I go from a bank robbery to a kidnapping to arresting a spy. And I mean, all in one day. There are days too, but being able to kind of see the over 300 federal violations the FBI works and being able to, be part of all of that is pretty incredible.
That's why we get up in the morning every day, is because we want to do a great job and be part of a great organization. So I agree with you. What advice would you give someone who wants to pursue a career as a public affairs officer?
I think I give this advice for anyone who's looking to move up in organizations. My rule is always look out for how you can help and then do it. If you have to stay late or take shifts that no one wants, but do stuff that makes you known as a worker and keep learning the job. When I was doing some of the stuff early on in my career with the PA Open in Milwaukee, there was some stuff where I didn't want to stay late. There was some work that I didn't want to do that, was occurring on a Friday night. But because I stuck with it, I, one, learned the job a little bit better, and two, was at least able to put my name out there so that other people would say, hey, he's a worker, he puts in the time, he's reliable. And I really would encourage people to look at what needs to be done, even if it's the job no one wants, and seize that, own it, and I think it eventually makes you invaluable to an organization.
Hard work does pay off. It really does. And when you put that effort in, those that are good leaders see that, and it does help. Okay, so who is your biggest mentor, role model, or supporter over the course of your career?
So you got three there. And I was thinking,
they can all be tumbled into one if you want.
They could.
That's fine.
I'm going to actually separate into three. My role model is definitely my dad, which is funny because he's a very quiet guy. And he would absolutely hate the public affairs role, but he is a wonderful guy. He's a faith-filled guy. I definitely look up to him. And he and my mom have provided a ton of support over the years. I had a wonderful mentor in college, actually a former FBI agent who was with the BAU, Behavioral Analysis Unit, Dr. Carl Jensen. And he was a wonderful guy, really looked up to him in college, still stay in touch with him. And just really someone who brought me, I never thought about the Bureau before I kind of met him. And he really turned me, onto the Bureau and how to, join the ranks and help out and all the good that they do. And then finally, I'm going to say the supporter, my fiance, got to give a shout out to her, Allison. I just proposed to her actually a couple months ago. She's definitely my rock. I after a hard day at work, after, a long day at work, especially, I can come home and, if she's staying in Little Rock or in Memphis, I can see her on the weekends. And just she grounds me, so it's really good to have her, someone that I can trust. I've been dating for 5 years, and hopefully we'll marry in the next 2 as a rock that really kind of helps me get rid of the stress of the job. So
having a good partner in a relationship, that's the best. That's usually the best supporter you can ever have. Outstanding. So what do most people misunderstand about what it is to be a PAO?
I'm going to take this from 2 angles. I think that both law enforcement and the public have misconceptions. Starting with law enforcement in the FBI, I think the most I ever hear is, hey, Connor, just give them a no comment. Well, my entire job is to not say no comment. I at least explain why I can't say something, whether it's policy or impacting an investigation. And so I think from the law enforcement angle, a lot of police officers, a lot of agents, a lot of investigators kind of look at public affairs as, well, I don't know how important it is. Except if you want to get those good tips for the case that you can't solve, or you want to get that information from the community member who may not trust the FBI or police department, how are you going to try to build that trust? Maybe it's going to be through the public affairs or community outreach person. Maybe. I think on the public side, you hear of the FBI, and you also think, guys in suits, no comments. I think that the public affairs side of the FBI in particular is seen more as glory hounds, that, oh man, yeah, the FBI is involved, so we're going to be number one. Everyone's going to see us. I hope that we are trying to change that mentality. I know that was kind of built up in the 80s and 90s, but hopefully the public might see us more as we're assisting the local police. And if the FBI is putting itself on a pedestal before our partners, we're doing something wrong. So I would encourage, the public to maybe look more at the cases that we work and who the spokespeople are. When there are major incidents, a lot of times it is not the FBI that is actually leading those press conferences. It is the local or the state, agencies, and the FBI is somewhat in the background providing assistance.
Great. That's a great way to sum that up. So if you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
It's a hard question. I think I would tell him, have a little faith. Everything's going to work out. Don't be anxious. And, also maybe work out a little bit more than you were going to put on a little bit more muscle weight. I'm not at that point yet, but bulk up a little bit.
There you go. So final thoughts. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I'd encourage people, we say this all the time in law enforcement, that see something, say something. And I think it almost gets overused where people are, well, see something, say something, right? It becomes a joke. I think that people, though, when I say you should call the FBI about that, they go wide-eyed. And people shouldn't. The FBI has people at the phones 24/7. Their entire job is to take tips from the public. Obviously, call your local law enforcement for sure. But if it's something, big, cyber terrorism, counterintelligence, or even, larger scale gangs and stuff like that, give us a call. We want to hear from the public. We are not this unreachable agency. We have field offices in every state. We have, in Arkansas alone, we have 7 offices. That's, Little Rock's our headquarters, but we are all throughout the state. And we really want communities to know that we're part of the community. And that includes law enforcement agencies. We're here to help you guys, reach out. Hopefully, people I know over the past couple of years have maybe lost some trust in the FBI. And I think there's some truth to some of the questionable activities that may have been going on in DC, but I know that in the field for sure, and in DC, there have been a lot of reforms that have been taken, a lot of steps that have been taken to try to earn the public's trust back. And I hope that certainly in Arkansas, and other parts of the country, that the FBI can be seen as a trustworthy partner for both police and community.
A great way to add your final thoughts. Connor, how could people best reach out to you to learn about you or connect with you if they'd like to?
So here's a shameless social media spiel. Follow us at FBI Little Rock Twitter. I'm hoping to get those followers up. We actually do produce some pretty good content. So if you're looking for what's going on in Arkansas, or looking for a couple of laughs maybe throughout the month about law enforcement related threats and stuff like that, at FBI Little Rock on Twitter. For me personally, feel free to reach out. My email is CAHAGAN@FBI.gov. That's CAHAGAN@FBI.gov.
And I will add both the Twitter handle and your email address in the show notes so that if people want to connect with you, they can.
I appreciate it. Robert, thank you so much for your time.
Connor, no, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you coming on the show. We don't get a chance to talk to many people in the Fed side often, and this is a great opportunity. So when I was able to connect with you, it was okay. Let's do it. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, we definitely appreciate the opportunity.
And that was Connor Hagan, the Public Affairs Officer from the Little Rock office of the FBI.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to contact the show, please email us at thepiopodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.